Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, Isaac. Welcome to the Widowhood.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And I will say, even though this is Isaac being welcome to our widowhood, we're having this conversation because he kind of already was a member of the widowhood.
But I guess technically I would.
Right, for sure. And I want to tell you guys, I am intentionally always looking and stalking. And Isaac can say that I stalked him down on TikTok and found him. It was like, hi, how you doing? Da da da. Could you come talk, please?
You did, but it was cool. It was. She's not the creepy stalker. Okay, like
because they are out there. So just so you know, everybody knows, I said hello. And I was like, I'm interested in this. This is our website. Please look at this and then get back to me. So I didn't come on hot and heavy real quick onto Isaac. It was just like, take a look. And I will tell you, he was pleased with our website. So he was like, okay.
Yes. I was very, very impressed with what you're doing. And I was like, I got to do it. That was really kind of how I was like, I got to do it.
And I appreciate that because you know that there are not enough men in this space sharing to provide encouragement. So absolutely. I see all of the equipment in the background. What's up with that? What does that represent in your life?
So music has always been in my life since I was a child. I think I started playing instruments probably around the age of 3 or 4 when I got my first set of drums and my first trumpets.
Wow.
So music has always been around. My father was a guitar player and singer, and he wrote also. He was also a really good artist. Like he could draw really, really well. He has a lot of paintings in the house and different paintings around from artistry that he's done over the years. But musically, my dad had a lot to do with, of course, he had everything to do with me getting involved in music. But one of the things he did is he gave up being a touring or aspiring musician to, be a family man. And so he always played his guitars and all those different things. So what you see around my first bass guitar is actually right there, right back there. And then this is one of my dad's favorite guitars right here, because I was recording earlier. And my dad would be proud right now because he's going on to glory, and it'll be 2 years on the 24th of April of this year. And yeah, I was actually recording guitar today, so it was funny because when I was a kid, I took a liking to the bass first, and well, he was teaching me guitar, and I was like, I want to play bass, and he was like, well, you gotta learn guitar first, but somehow he was like, okay, I will teach you bass. And so yeah, I will play the guitar, but it's more, I don't do any of those like on a stage. I usually do it in like studio work kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I have enough to get by. I say I'd be like, I have enough skill in guitar and bass to get by to do recordings because I know what I want typically. And so so this is my studio area right now. This is what it is.
Okay. I have so many questions, so I'm going to try to pace myself here. So one, you mentioned your dad's, if I heard you correctly, stopped being on the road for his music to become a family man. What impact did that make on you?
I guess the impact was he was always here. My father was always involved in my life, whether that be music, sports, and specifically on Boy Scouts. Like when we did Boy Scouts and stuff like that, he was my He was my Cub Scout leader. He was also my Scoutmaster at one point. And him making that sacrifice, and I want to say that was really before I was even born, that he kind of made that decision to not pursue it heavy. I could see that impacted our lives in such a great way for myself and my sister. And so when I look at that, that sacrifice worked out for our family. You know,
Okay.
my mom and him were together for 47 years.
So when you think of relationships, were your parents that idea? Were you looking to mimic what you saw your dad doing, or what did you pull from his being a father to you and how you want to show up in life?
One of the things that my dad, he was, first of all, my dad was a Marine Corps veteran from Vietnam.
Okay.
Grew up
There's
in
some
Jim Crow.
complexities with that. Yes.
Yeah, so my father was a very, very intelligent man in a different way. He grew up in what we would consider Jim Crow South in the 60s, or well, he grew up born in 1946 and grew up in Greenwood, South Carolina. So my father came up through a very different world than I did, obviously. And him him being a father and a husband, and my parents' relationship was ultimately the first thing that modeled marriage for me. Now, obviously, we all know we do take and leave some things that we see
For sure.
with our relationships or our family or our parents and stuff like that. However, his presence was definitely an asset to me, because a lot of people don't get that. A lot of kids
Yes.
that I grew up with, even in my age group, still didn't get having both parents around, and I did.
Yes.
So his impact was very, very. There are a lot of things that come to mind that when I became an adult and then certain life situations happened, I did hear his voice a lot of times of things that he would say when I was a child, and I'd be like, I don't know what he's talking about, and it made sense, 30 years later.
That part right there about hearing your dad's voice. And you said there are a lot of different ways. Can you share one or two different ways that you've heard your dad's voice in decisions or in living life?
Oh, absolutely. The biggest one that I shared, I even shared a lot of times. If you're ever seeing me on like a podcast or any other place, especially when it talks around emotional intelligence and things like that, my dad had his own form of it, I guess. I think this is the emotional intelligence, the new phrase for it. But my father always used to teach me to control my passion. And what that
Mm,
meant for him, what he was teaching me was about how to be in control of your emotions no matter what the situation is, in a sense that you can make logical decisions, but also in the sense that you can control yourself so you don't make bad decisions that you regret, and things like that. So one of the things with that I remember is, like, I used to be a hothead when I was really young. You say a couple two words that I ain't like, and I might be in your face, and but that also came with the territory where I grew up in Baltimore City, and on the west side of Baltimore City, and the neighborhood in which I grew up in. I did get picked on a lot when I was very young, before high school, and I make it point before high school, before
because
my
you're how tall?
before high school I was not tall, but I'm 6 feet in real life now.
Right. That changed the game. It was like, okay, hold on.
Yeah, when I hit that growth
Yes.
spurt between 8th grade and 9th grade and started hitting the weights and
Right.
playing football at a high level and wrestling and all that stuff like that. Yeah, and then by that time I probably knocked out a couple of people in my neighborhood. So
So the word was out. And when you say
so it
West
was,
Side, so I was born on the West Side of Chicago. You just say West Side anything, it's like, okay, hold on for a second.
yeah,
Hold
yeah. So it was kind of like one of them things. It was like, all right, you kind of have some respect. So, but I remember him talking about the control your passion thing, and one of those things have that particular phrase in itself has kept me from a lot of bad decisions on, okay, you should probably walk away from that, even in the professional world of even corporate America, or you know what, yeah, you probably don't want to do that. You probably, what, even in relationships, don't do that. you flying off the handle might put you in prison, you know. So that phrase has carried me, and I'm 42 now, and that statement rings true, very, very true for me in so many aspects.
I
Even
love I love that it's a
even
simple statement, but it transcends every part of your life.
yeah, even to the point um of being a widow, and during the time of planning funerals and things like that, that controlling, being able to be of a somewhat of a sober mind
Okay.
in the midst of that, like you said, it transcends all of those different parts of my life.
Okay, so you mentioned being a widow, and do you prefer the term widow or widower?
Oh,
Or does it
widower. Yeah,
even matter?
I do usually say widower. I just
Okay.
just said widow just the time, but
No,
yeah.
no, because I have heard some men use the term widow
Mhm.
interchangeably. So I was like, okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. So you dropped that bomb. Let's talk about your widower story. What does that look like for you?
Well, first time, I'm actually twice a widower.
Okay.
So I know that might be a shock to a lot of people.
You're right, because they're saying he said he was 47. He said he was a widower and now
No, I'm
twice.
42. You give I mean now if you give me 47, that
Okay, so hold
my
on for a
parents were
second.
together for 47 years. That's what
How old was your dad? What year was your dad
my
born?
my dad was born in 1946.
Okay. I was trying to figure out if I need to get out my wheelchair because your girl over here 57. So I'm like, okay. Trying to make sure I got the numbers
My
right.
dad was well into he was well into his 70s. So,
Okay.
when
So
he
42 and twice a widower. That's the elevator statement right there for sure.
yeah, it's an interesting thing to be. It's also an interesting thing to say when you're in certain situations. So
I.e. dating.
i.e. dating.
Okay, we're not gonna jump to that, but I do.
I
Okay,
know we're
so
not gonna jump too far. I
okay,
know.
but okay, so you're so but I'm pinning that because we are going to get to that because
Right.
your perspective as a widower is so much different than I think that what widows receive. And I'm okay if we jump around, but I want to give
Yeah,
honor to your widower journey, if you would.
sure. So my first time with my widower journey started in excuse me, April of 2017. April 8th, 2017 to be exact. And I just celebrated the life of my second wife, who that's who it was. Her name is Shamika, and we had a wonderful relationship. Very interesting relationship because most people we got married in like 4.5 months. So um,
Did your parents get married that quickly too?
I don't know how long it was. Listen, I just heard. Funny you asked the question. My mom and I recently had a conversation. I want to say it was about a month and a half ago. We were sitting down, we
Mm-hmm.
were talking, and my mom was sharing with me like how her and my dad met because I really didn't know. I knew they like were in the same neighborhood kind of thing once he got back from Vietnam and stuff like that, but I didn't really know exactly like the kind of story of like what got them to. And she shared it with me, so it was really cool. Like, so I don't know. I'd have to ask that detail from my mom, but I don't think it was a super long time. I don't think it was a
Okay.
long time.
Okay.
So it was very different, and but I think we were both of us were on purpose and in purpose, and when our paths crossed, it made sense to
Okay.
us. One the one only time that I ever dated anyone I worked with,
Oh,
the one and only time. We worked in the same at the same company,
okay.
sat next to each other in training class. Funny, oddly enough, but we were on the first team together because all the people that because we helped like set up this entire department that was there at the time that we worked at this particular company. Now, fast forward, it was funny because I look at God for a lot of things and answers and and I only believe that I was hired at that job to meet her because about a month and a half before we got married, I got laid off. She stayed. I got laid off.
Okay.
Like right before we got married. So I was like, I think he only worked that out so that we could be together. That's like how I looked at it. I was like, that has to be, I was like, I had to be divine because there ain't no way. Like, I was like, I don't normally date nobody I work with. Never. And this one time, here it is. So
Wow.
we had a really, really great relationship. And actually, part of our relationship is what, as still as friends and co-workers, was she found out about me as a jazz artist, and she asked for my signature on a post-it note, and everybody used to clown her about it. Like, it was like, why would you get? They were like, she's like, you don't even realize who that is right there. And so she posted it on her on I guess a cubicle, whatever.
Okay.
Posted it on a cubicle, and it was so interesting because later we ended up getting married, and then for a period of time she was my manager as an artist.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Couple of things. Has she been a manager before, or she took this on as being your wife and just being able to work together?
She had not been, but she had always had a dream of being one.
Okay, so now we go back to purpose and intentionality, to meet
Right.
somebody, to be her husband, to fulfill a purpose and a dream in her life. How did that feel for you, knowing that how you feel like God set that up and had that purpose fulfilling?
That was great because not only did she get that with me, she got it with other artists. We used to manage several different like Christian rap artists, and then there's a couple of singers that we were able to manage. And but that was her baby. Like, I just happened to be the person that kind of oversaw the company itself, but
Okay.
that was her thing, and it worked out because I was already in the music business, and so there was a lot that I could show her from that. But she got her gift in administration was bar none like one of the main reasons why it worked out well for her, because that was it. So
Okay.
I'm a visionary. I can see the end from the beginning, and she put the other pieces in the middle, and it worked out very, very well. And she was very, very she loved doing it.
Okay.
And so we had it was fun. We had a good time doing it.
So your norm is not to date somebody at work. What was the prompting to date her?
I would have to say so as one of my college friends says to me, Isaac, you have a type. And I like classy women.
Okay.
And I like them thick too, but that's a whole other
We're gonna
detail.
putting that onto the dating thick and classy.
Yeah.
I got to put that back to the dating. All right, we go back to that. But ladies, take note because she is single now, but go ahead.
So one of the things that I, when it came to her, is like she just always was well put together, and she didn't come to work looking terrible or like hell freezed over. Like, because I know sometimes life be life and between just being just an adult, and having responsibilities can be challenging. But she always looked good, and we just always had a good, cordial kind of thing. And it was just interesting. This, I always, if she was here, she would tell you. She was like, you always had this phrase that you would say to me, and I knew that I looked good. And she'd be like, because I would be like, all right, I see you. And so she always looked at it. And I'm not really sure exactly what kind of turned the tide for us, but it was just like, this one particular day, I think we just kind of decided to exchange numbers. And then like, from there, it was like, had no idea. I think we went out on a date, and then
4 months later, you were married.
Yeah. because we literally spent time together to. So let me tell you how fast it was. Like we literally spent after work or after our things that we had going on personally. It was like 2 weeks straight, like where we just and after 2 weeks, I was like, okay, God, like talk to your boy. That, unlike some people, I prayed to God a little different than y'all. So,
No,
some
no,
of
no.
y'all.
It's important that you say that. And a couple of things. I've often heard that a man knows early on if this is the woman he wants to be with.
Mhm.
Making that decision and executing may take time, but that sense of wanting that woman and this to be my partner, you just
Mhm.
kind of confirmed in that statement to me things that I've heard, which I
Mhm.
think is interesting for women that want to hang around for a long time waiting for somebody to make a decision. But I'm gonna put that underneath the dating area because we slipping. But that right there.
Uh, I know I talk a lot about that on my TikTok and
Hmm.
different stuff. And yeah, I would agree that, men do know. Now I will say on on the other side of being a widower and moving in the dating world is vastly different
For
after going
sure.
through
Okay, so
everything.
4 months,
So,
4 months, and you guys get married. How do you deliver that to the family or friends? How does that show up in the
straight
conversation?
to the face.
Okay.
I come from Baltimore. She was from Columbus, Ohio. We both grew up in the hood. We right at it.
Okay.
It wasn't no, oh well, and I think for my parents, it might have been a little bit of a shock, but because I had previously went through a divorce and stuff like that, and but I was a different man. I was on a whole, my path was very, very different, and it was already it was already set. So, family could either get on board with what we believe God said about us, or we were just gonna be me and her.
Mm,
And it was our attitude. But our families were was completely supportive. So
they rallied. And how long were you two married?
we let's see, I want to say we were almost to our 4 years. We were almost to 4 years. We were almost to 4 years.
And what you would want to share about her passing and what you remember about that?
The details of what happened and what I experienced, I would never want anyone to I would never wish that on my worst enemy. That's the challenging part about losing a spouse in the way that I did. Was a very tragic situation. And what I want the thing that I remember, and matter of fact, what was I doing? I was doing something recently where I was sharing about it. I think I was on a either on a live or something, and I shared the thing that I remember us doing. Matter of fact, I actually on the anniversary, I
Oh,
shared it on
okay.
my TikTok, and I was like, and I was encouraging people to love people. Life is short. You don't know when your last breath will be. You don't know what. So all these different wars or gender wars and all these different things that are going on right now that I see across social media, and just a lot of hatred in general between races and all kinds of different things. I was just like, you know what? Take today to just turn that corner and love people. Respect people, love them, create experiences, all those things, because you never know. And one of the last memories I have is that we always crack jokes. And when she was leaving me at the time to, and I'm like, okay, well, we prayed together, and she had a smile on her face. We cracked the joke. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember what the joke was, but she cracked the joke and we laughed, and she had a smile on her face. And I didn't know that that was the last time that I would get to see that smile. That was really, like, if I have any memory, that's the greatest thing. I felt a little worried about. I didn't get to say bye in a sense, but in a sense I did, because I prayed for her, and things like that. But I was like, man, we cracked a joke, we smiled and told each other we love you and that kind of thing. And when we parted ways at that moment. And when I think about that, that for me is where the comfort comes, is, you know, at times, because it's not like we had some terrible argument or anything like that. It wasn't a drag out situation, you know, like some of these, I've seen some movies and things like that, that, you know, the person, they parted off of an argument and then someone gets in a tragic accident or something like that. And then they're like, oh my gosh, and they go through the entire movie, like, you know, regretting their whole life because they couldn't take themselves out of the emotions that happen in the middle of maybe an argument or something like that. So that's one of those things I encourage a lot of people to, you know what, this petty stuff,
Yes.
not even worth it. It's really not. Like, cherish every moment you could possibly cherish, because you don't know when it's not gonna be there. When that person, or you don't know if you could ever create that moment again. And so those are the things that I hold on to.
That is beautiful. And I'd like to echo what you said. We often hear people say, you never know when it's going to be the last day. When people say that to us, we like, that is not a cliche. That is not like,
No.
you know, ha 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 ha. It's like, for real though. Like,
right.
People go, well, if something happens, we know it's the reality of when something is going to happen.
I say it all the time. I was like, life is going to happen. And, you know, you can consider this life, and I was sharing that with someone recently too. Like I said, life is going to happen. I think I was on a live, matter of fact. And I said, life is going to happen to you. It's a matter of when.
Yes.
It's not on whether it's going to. It's just a matter of when. Your day might not be today, might not be next week, might not be 3 months from now. But when you meet that, it's going to happen. And I was talking about that in general, even with like death. Like I was saying to a person that recently, and I think it was a personal conversation I was having with someone, and they said, you know, they had lost someone, and I said, I know it hurts, sucks, you know, nobody likes it. I said, but it's the natural evolution of life. And when I said that to them, they kind of like paused, and they were like, dang, you know what, you're right. It made them look at it very differently. See, natural evolution of life. You came into this world, you're going to leave this world. It's an evolution. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And when you look at it from that perspective, because matter of fact, the question they had on their social media is, are you afraid to die? And I told them no. And I gave them a reason why I wasn't. And they were shocked at my answer, and they like inboxed me like, how do you do that? And I was like, death is a natural evolution of life. I said, however, I also know where I'm going when I leave, which is where the comfort comes. Now, I don't want to leave here too early, and I'm still enjoying life. I want to raise my son and all, you know, I got things, you know, I got a daughter's graduating high school here in a few short weeks. I want to be around for certain things, but death is an evolution of life.
And so in that evolution, how did you cope? What did life look like for you after April 8th, 2017?
I'm gonna get real with y'all, because
this is called Real Talk, so we'd appreciate it.
This is the only way I can be. So I need people to understand how real this is, and even for a man, and just in general, like the thoughts that go through your mind. So first thing is, we were a blended family. So we had an older daughter at the time, outside of my own biological daughter. It was she took care of her niece. She was a guardian to her niece, which she raised as her own daughter. The hardest part of that was telling a 14-year-old child the mother that she knew was gone. That in itself would break anybody down. But life after, matter of fact, as immediately the next day, I'm like, I'm on our floor in our living room, and I look up, and I'm just there because I am still in disbelief. I didn't sleep, obviously. And I'm in our floor and I'm just like, okay, God, like, I don't have nowhere else to go. I don't have nobody else to lean on. I don't have nothing. I have never thought I would ever be here, not at least this early. I was 35 at the time. And I'm like, God, help a brother out. Like, you're going to have to tell me something. And then I also, again, this is how I pray a lot of times. A lot of people, think they so extra holy. Yeah, I still reverence God. However, I prayed to him. I was like, God, listen, I said, I don't know what this is going to be and how this is going to go. I don't have nothing. I don't have anybody else. So part of the things that I know is that there's purpose in my life. There's things I'm supposed to do. And I'm not supposed to do that alone. And I can't be in this condition for a very long time. I don't know how that's going to look. I don't know when you're going to change this whole situation, but my life can't fall completely apart right now. And so I need you to help me. That was literally my prayer the next day. I'll never forget it.
Wow, there's so much in that. One, the idea that you turn to God instead of away from God.
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes in grief, people will become in a way that they don't even want to respond. They don't want to interact with God. And
Sure.
for you to speak from your heart as far as what you knew for your life to be versus what that current situation is. So the idea of still having hope of an existence and a fulfilled purpose that you spoke about existed, but yet still being like in disbelief and devastation and all those together intertwined.
Yeah, because at that moment, this is the thing that I've always shared with people. At that very moment when she took her last breath, the thing that I remember is that what I've learned my entire life when it came to the Word of God and being a Christian and identifying with God's Word and studying and all of those things, all of that word that they say, the Word of God says, hide the Word in your heart.
Okay.
All of it became real at that moment.
Okay.
Not that I didn't lean on the Word before, or the Word of God wasn't real to me, but the scriptures, whatever, all those years of ingesting scripture became real to me when I had nobody, nothing else. The world as I knew it crumbled. So the only thing I had was God, because I don't know, I ain't never been here, but you've been here because you sent your son.
Okay.
You've been here because you were there to awaken Lazarus. You've been here. I don't know that. So now I need you to help me, because I ain't got nothing else. Because nobody I know around me been ever lost a spouse. I'm 35 years old. Who the heck am I gonna call to ask that? I can't call my parents. Both of my parents were still alive at that point. I can't call my sister. She still got her husband right now. I ain't got no friends to call. I ain't got I ain't got nobody. Who else I'm gonna call?
So you mentioned scripture and God. What are you reading that's giving you and telling you what God is saying? Where does that show up?
At that time, or
No, just in general. What is a book that you're reading that's giving you this word of God? I'm not making an assumption that anybody who's listening is understanding where you're getting your information. Right, but I want to be clear because this.
Oh yeah, no, I got you. I know this.
Right.
This touched lots of the other people. For me, it is the Bible. It is the Word of God. It is consider the Holy Scriptures.
Okay. So someone whose spouse has died and they're the total opposite. They don't even want to hear what God is saying. Have you interacted or engaged with somebody? And if so, how did you share what you were experiencing versus how they were seeing it?
I think I have. I've experienced with people that even if it wasn't their spouse, but their like parents or whatever the case is, and I've always shared with them, listen, I'm a very honest person with people when it comes to God and the relationship, because faith is a very difficult thing for a lot of people. I find it very easy I don't understand how God made me like that. I find it very easy to believe in the Lord and believe in him beyond most people. My faith level is very high. Everybody is not that way. So what I share with people is that, okay, it's okay that you're upset with God right now because those emotions are real. However, if you let him in, he will give you peace if you are willing to ask him for it and willing to go to the very peacemaker or the very person that is of peace. He is the man of truth and peace and love. And if you go to him, he will give it to you. If you really put yourself in that position to be vulnerable for it, he will love you through it and you won't understand. The peace that surpasses all understanding, that scripture is real to me. It's beyond real to me because I can't tell you. I ain't got no answers. I ain't got no answers of how I live life every day. And I tell anybody, I should be bumping my head up against the wall in a padded room, hugging myself based upon the things that God or that life has dealt me. My cards, listen, I got a heck of a poker face.
And when you said that, actually, my question that I was going to ask you, how are you still smiling? How are you still happy? How we haven't even talked about your widow or journey after she died, but we know that there's a part two to that. But since you mentioned that,
Mhm.
how are you smiling? Because it sounds as if you still have hope, you still have expectation for a good life. You have not allowed this to swallow everything in your existence.
Yeah. Only reason why I have hope is because I understand that I still have it's obvious I still have purpose here. And I may not understand exactly all of that purpose. I do understand part of it. Part of it is that I have to live my life publicly for other people. So part of my purpose is that regardless of how life crumbles for you or falls apart or whatever, your heart's ripped out of your chest, you can still live life and
Mm.
move on. And then there are other people because people be like, when they hear about it, because I've gone through very public uh widower space, on both occasions, and people have questions, and people are like, "How do you?" I don't think I'd be able to do that, and I'm like, "Yeah, neither did I. I didn't think that either." But here we are, and you can choose to be stuck in grief and all the stages that go along with it, or you can choose to move forward, understand those emotions are real. You're going to deal with them when they come, but don't stay there. And I am a person, I've always been a half glass full kind of person. I've always been an optimist, never a pessimist. And because I'm that person, I don't do well in sorrow and despair for very long. Do I cry? Absolutely. Do I have the times where I don't want to deal with nothing or nobody or anything? Absolutely. Have I had times where I'm like, okay, God, for real, why you do me like this? For real, like why did you let this happen to me? Why did I have to lose all of this? Why did that part of my life fall apart? Why did I have to go through this? Why do I feel like I'm being cheated out of certain things? And I don't really understand it all. I still don't. However, I'm still here. And my name means laughter. Okay. Let's just start there.
Mm.
I really do live. I am the Isaac of the Bible. My parents weren't supposed to, my mother wasn't supposed to have any children after my sister. So them praying to God and asking for me, I'm a miracle. And so with that being said, I live the miracle life. And
And
so apparently,
even in that, when you think of Shamik's passing, what were some of your darkest moments in that grieving process?
ooh, that cold feeling in a house without anybody,
Mm.
that cold feeling. The darkest parts are just Like, is you start to run through your life together. You start to run through, man, did I do certain things right? Was I a good husband? Was I a good father? You know, all of those things. All of those thoughts come through your head. All of um the darkest moments is just when I could things that I thought about that happened or transpired between us as a couple. Man, I really screwed up there. Like, could I have made that better? And maybe she would have been here still. You know, like there are all kinds of things that go through your head. And you think about those things and you're like, and then you think about, man, we were planning to do this and that, but now she gone. And that's gut wrenching. And it hurts. It hurts beyond any words that you describe, because it's like it's just a very, very bottomless pit in your stomach. You're just like, oh my God, like life is, what is life gonna be now? And then trying to figure that out, and then deciding to get up to do something different. But
Okay, so that part there. We say those words, and you mentioned we decide to not be stuck. We decide all those things. What does that action look like? What were those actual steps? What was something that transpired that was that shifting of not being stuck for you?
so one of the things that I did quite regularly. So one of my former pastors at the time, I stayed at his house for about 2 or 3 weeks after she passed. And their being in their house was very, very peaceful. It provided me basically an escape from the world. It provided me prayer in a different form, because not only this is a pastor that I served it, for years, him and his wife and his family. I was under intense care during that time. I didn't have to think about bills or anything. I didn't have to think about anything but just, hey, come here. Your room is here. They've prayed over this room. This room is used for pastors, prophets, whatever. They use this room specifically for healing for people or an escape for people. And that room, which is full of peace, I got good sleep during that time, and it just gave me a jump start. The other part for me, as you said before, I ran to God and not away from God because I have nobody else. And even him, like even my pastor, even the pastor that I stayed with, him and his wife still married right now. He don't know what that feel like, but he was present. I think that's the most important part, is he was present. His first lady was present, and every day I literally ran to the altar and just laid on it. I did. I ran to the altar and laid on it, and I would just cry for hours, and then I'd get up and go about my day. During that time, that's actually what it jump started me into Uber and lifting. So when she first died, I couldn't sleep, obviously. That's a big thing. Insomnia comes a thing. And I would drive around the city of Jacksonville, Florida all night, find a bench somewhere. Actually, I used to go, matter of fact, I would go to where I asked her to marry me at. And I would sit on a bench near the where I probably still have the picture somewhere, but I believe that there was a light from heaven that never was. It's not there any other time. Like when I asked her to marry me, it was like this light shined from the sky down onto me and her, and it was only there for that time. Like I literally, like it wasn't. So it was very divine. And so I would go there after driving around, and I would just sit there at that spot for hours on end until I would get tired enough, and then I would go back to Bishop's house, and I would crawl in bed for however many hours, and then get up and then do it, and then I would just be busy all day, and then do it all over again. And that's and at one point I was like, I'm like, since you could be driving around wasting gas, you might as well. So I started Ubering. I Ubered and Lyft, and that's how I started on that journey at one point. And yeah, I would do that all night. So that's how actually, I got into Uber and Lyft.
Wow. So how do we go from that to dating and getting married?
So I don't even know when the transition happened because I wasn't interested. I can honestly say I was like, man, I don't think I'm ever getting married again.
Because at this point, you've been married twice.
I've been married twice at that point. And my initial thought was, I ain't doing this again. And I'll tell anybody, that's going to be your initial thought. Oh no, you don't want to get married again. It's going to be your initial thought. Ain't nobody losing their spouse and be like, oh yeah, I can't wait to get married again. Hell no. Absolutely not. Not what you're thinking. I promise you it ain't your thought.
Especially if you had a bad marriage and then you had a good one. It's like, we're gonna call it up. We're gonna rock it safety right here. We good.
Listen, I like going out on top. I've been a champion all my life, okay? I tell anybody, I've been a champion all my life. I got rings, I got trophies, I've been a champion for real, okay? And I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to, yeah. So yeah, I initially was like, no. So how I turned that corner was really went back to that prayer. First prayer I said, God, what I know you want me to do, I can't do it alone. And I ain't gonna be able to sit here. I said, you know what kind of man I am? You know what I'm real like, I'll be like, single life is trash. Like, I don't care. Nobody say, I tell people that, listen, the single life is trash. These people be like, oh, I'm excited. They love being single. I feel like a fish out of water, okay? And so how that started was through friendship. And I wasn't expecting it. So part of that was, and this is how I ended up meeting my last wife, is through widowerhood, or we met under those same crazy enough story. I know this it makes sense, but the story is very, very important. So her brother and I served another pastor, and we've all been around ministry around the city of Jacksonville before. And her brother and I were friends. He's a musician too, and other stuff, and he's a pastor. Long story short, when my late wife lost her husband, my then wife at the time, Shamika, and I were at the service the next day after the funeral. This is where it gets really interesting. We prayed for this woman. We prayed over her and all that in that service, and comfort and all that for her losing her husband. Not knowing that I would experience the same thing about 6 months later. So we reconnected I called her brother. I said, listen, I was like, could you ask your sister a question for me about sleep? Because now this is the only person that, number one, she's young, I'm young, and she's the closest person in any type of circle that I'm in that can give me some understanding of how do you do life? How are you doing life outside of losing your spouse? So he was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll ask her or whatever. And so the conversation, for those of you that love the DMs, started through DMs on Facebook. I know, right? I know, sips tea, right? And I asked her, I said,
You slid
I,
into her
I
DM.
I went into her DMs at Facebook. He said, hey, she said, contact her on Facebook. So I did. And I said, hey, how are you doing? Hope all is well. And I just dug in. Hey, how do you sleep at night? How do you deal with the insomnia? That's how we started.
And what was the timeline from the death of your wife to that conversation starting?
I'd say about 2.5 to 3 months.
But this was a conversation just reaching out to someone else that had lost a spouse on
Yeah.
how do you cope? You started creating community with the first person closest that you knew because you needed a blueprint.
Yeah, because I ain't had no answers, and I'm like, again, I ain't have nobody to call on. All of my friends are married.
Right.
They all like, we don't know what to do with you.
That's
And
fair.
consequently, I for those of you who are listening, you are going to let me help you out. I'm a very real person. You're going to lose friends.
No, not always. I'm gonna say no. Nope. I have not lost a single friend.
Okay.
But most of the time, you are right. It is a majority story. I will say that. I just want to throw that out.
I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but there are going to be some people that, I'll say this, there are going to be people that you expect to be there for you that probably will disappoint you.
And to that point, I will say that is true. But when that happened, I had to instantly think, who did I know how to be there for them? I learned something on the journey of losing my husband. I had no emotional bandwidth to show up for anybody. I didn't have the capacity. I knew how to just understand it was sad, but the level in which I know now, it made me relieve people go, okay, why would they have shown up? They didn't know how. Their ability to do that was limited. But you are right. The majority of people that I speak with, they lose friends, they lose interactions for a multitude of reasons. Some people can't handle
totally
the sadness. Some people cannot. The grieving person does not often know how to convey what they're feeling, and people go, well, what can I do for you? And it's like, my spouse died. You just gave me something else on my to-do list. Jump in and just do something that you see I need. Come cut the grass, come wash the dishes, drop me off a food card. But that part is super difficult, and you're already at your low point. This is not where you need people to start running away. But you're right, it is a common thing that people experience that. And it is sad.
I guess I wasn't trying to be negative about it.
I was just being funny.
I know. But to your point, you don't know. I agree. You don't know what you need. I think where my biggest thing is that people that have ever ate at my table, people that I've in some cases employed, and people that I've had what I would consider a covenant level relationship with, and people that said they're going to do things and they didn't. And it was disappointing on top of what I was already dealing with. So
it's that statement, I'll do anything. If you need anything, just let me know. That statement, people should not say that.
Like, I had a whole conversation with someone that said, they called me and they said, hey, what do you need? Like, and this was in the most recent losing my wife. And I was like, I could, I need some more formula. My son was very young at the time, and we'll get into that. And they never called me back. And I never called them back because I was like, yeah. For me, I was like, You
You
know
gotta
I'm over.
you gotta limit the exposure. It's like, okay, I don't have enough emotional bandwidth to give you that, and I still have to deal with what I'm dealing with. Okay.
Yeah. So I just, yeah. And
Okay,
unfortunately, I still
so
have that folks to this day. But that's,
you mentioned your son. So what is it? Is your son from your most recent wife that passed?
yes,
Okay, and so her passing in timeline to his birth, what did that look like?
roughly 2.5 weeks.
Okay. And what do you do in finding yourself here again? Because you've been very clear, God, I need a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're thinking you're needing is gone again.
Yeah. We met through the common space of being widows. You know, I needed someone to share with me. And I think, like I said, in that story, like she was able to teach me about, and this is where I get really squirrely with dudes and men, I'll say men, that have a hard time listening to women because I learned, I've learned a ton of things from her. Number one, I learned a lot about the brain and how neurons fire and all of these different things because that girl is quite intelligent. I swear, I will tell anybody. My wife was smarter than me. I ain't got no problem with saying that. And the rest of y'all that be walking around here with your chest poked out and all egotistical and that like somebody can't be smarter than you doesn't mean I still didn't leave my household or anything like that. Doesn't mean I had to have a fight with her because I didn't. But she was smarter than me, and she taught me a routine on how to start to when it came to sleeping and how to get to a space where you kind of walk your brain down a path in order for you to be able to rest and all of those things. And so when I would forget things, she was like, she would be the first person. Isaac is all right. Listen, it's you've been through a lot. You've been through something very, very traumatic. Your neurons aren't firing the way that they normally would because of the trauma. And so you may have to be extra diligent about writing things down in order to keep yourself together. I seem to always run into these women that are very good at administration.
God brings you what you need.
Yeah, because I can tell you right now, listen, I can do it. It ain't
It
my
ain't your
strong,
jam. It ain't your
but
jam.
it ain't my if I because I will tell anybody I'm a visionary. I can see the end from the beginning and the beginning and the end. I don't necessarily know all the pieces in the middle. And somebody for me is always the person that can fit those parts together. I think that's just how God has always just wired me. And so she made that part on how to get sleep and all those and be able to rest and all those things. And that was what our friendship ended up, starting. And I'm trying to do so I believe, and I remember us talk about it because we used to talk about it. It was like we're gonna tell our grandkids, our kids and our grandkids is how we met, but we're gonna tell them our first date is this. And I gave this story on on TikTok. I used somebody else's example, or I stitched a video or something. It's way down my TikTok page somewhere. And somebody
See me already thinking like, okay, let me go look at that.
yeah, people try to tell me this. Well, that wasn't a first date. I I was like, well, if my wife was still alive, she'd tell you, and you gonna tell her she wrong. Like we had we had stated this particular day was our first date because up until this point we were excuse me, we were friends. And I was like, okay. I was like, our first date, we ran into each other at Walmart. She was still out of work from having had surgery. And we ran into each other at Walmart. And I was like, hey, you want to go have lunch? Let's go over to Nukes. Nukes is a place have really, really good salads. So we go over there. This is gonna tie into my gift as a seer and someone who sees God will show me dreams and then I walk through them. So now, with that being said, I don't always see the people in the dream, but I do usually get the scenery. I usually get things going, like the scenery around, maybe a building or whatever. I might not know all of the details. But I have walked through several of my dreams in my lifetime. This is one of them. So we're sitting at the table. Now, this came from a just running into her at Walmart, saying, hey, you want to go to lunch? Turned into like, we were together for like 8 hours. And we sat there till they almost closed that day. Like we ate lunch and we were there for like almost 8 hours. And we sat there and we talked and yeah. And in the middle part of our conversation, I did like this. And I was like, I've been here before. That would be the day that we had a turning point where I was like, okay. So that's when I, obviously not in that moment, but that's when I'm like, okay, God, all right now. This is where I'm like, okay, God, when certain things like that happen, I'm like, all right, we need to have a conversation. Because that ain't normal.
And so we're still in
the whole
2017?
scenery.
Are we in 2018 at this point?
We're in 2018.
Okay.
And I am literally over here like, no, that would have still been, was it 2018 or was it might have been, no, I think it was still 2017, but it was.
Okay.
And so I'm like, and I'm sitting there in that thing, and I'm like, the guy right there with his son at the counter, that lady over there, and that couple sitting at the table was there, and I didn't know who was sitting across from me. But now I do. That's how vivid my dreams are.
Do you recall the timeline from that dream to when it actually transpired? Same year, months?
No.
Okay.
Years. A lot of my dreams are years.
Okay.
Just like me walking with my son, holding his hand, just me and him. Years.
When you got married, obviously you were thinking, this is for the long game. This is this person I'm going to stay married to. We're going to grow old together. This is going to be the redemption story. This is where it's going to turn around. I would envision there is a lot of hope and expectation and fulfillment in what this looks like.
Absolutely.
How long were you married?
We just celebrated our 2-year anniversary.
And 2-year anniversary, you just had a child.
Yeah. Matter of fact, her prayer first, but our prayer was, give me at least a year with my husband before we have a child. And then my son, now let's put a pause right there. It's a little thing. God promised me a son years prior, like dream, vision. Like I said, I've seen a picture of my son and I walking together, holding hands. He would be a toddler. He's a toddler now. So that was prior to me meeting Shamika. Now, did me and Shamika try to have a child? Yes. But the vision of me having, or promise of having a son was before her. So now here we are, I'm with Renee, and we get our year together. And yeah, like I tell him, we worked for our child. Like it was like that was a plan. It was a lot of practice.
Hello for the practice. Okay. We're gonna say hello for the practice.
Listen, there was a lot of we put a lot of work in. I had, just like y'all ladies had an app, I was shared on the app. I knew exactly what time and when.
Okay.
Yeah, like we was that kind of level. Like she lost 35 pounds, I lost 40.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Y'all making sure everything was prime and ready. Okay, we're gonna let you drink your tea on that as I ask the next question. Yeah. So how did you grieve Renee differently than Shamik?
That was it was very different because we just we just had a child. We just had a son. And my grief and how I grieved her was very different. I wasn't as going to God as I was before. I didn't forget him, but that blow was so heavy that I didn't know what to say to him. And even though, like I said, he knows our moans, our groans, our he stores up our tears, all those things, all those things are real. I was like, okay, God, like I thought, like you said, grow old together, all that kind of stuff. We had all these plans and visions, and here we are again. But not only are we here, we are again. This promised child is here. He hasn't even got a chance to touch his mother. How do I? What you? What, and not only that, I'm out here by myself. We're in the middle of a world pandemic, and I'm just supposed to just move on. I gotta make sure I take care of him at the same time while grieving his mother is no longer here. I have no answers. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why she is not here. I can't understand any part of it. I can't figure, there's nothing. I'm at a state of loss, confusion, but a blow to my gut. Like, Mike Tyson just knocked me out and I ain't get up, and I got a broke jaw. I got broke ribs. I am beat to the street. I ain't got nothing. I can't say nothing. I ain't got nothing to say. Now I got to plan funerals. I still got to work. I got to take care of an infant by myself. I can't really have people around. At this time, my immediate family or my parents still live in Baltimore. My bonus parents, they live in the same city, but we have to limit the level of contact that we have. And again, I'm here with me and God because I ain't got who else. I ain't got nobody. Because now I got a child, and now I'm a single father. Reality is real. My son is already home now, and a week later his mother passes away, and I'm trying to figure it out. Like, I am lost. I am completely, now up until that point was very hopeful and prayerful, okay, talking every day, but some of the things, or our last conversation together, yeah, it was like I never knew that last conversation, one of the things, we had talked about breastfeeding and different things like that and all the different and I remember us talking about it, and when she had to be in the hospital, with our son, one of the things that the last conversation that we had, she had she had just awakened and everything was, we were talking, and we got to do because the NICU at the time, you could visual, and then of course I'm taking pictures and video, and we had talked about the biggest thing for her, and one of her biggest things was, we talked about this, and this was our thing. She didn't want feeding time to be only her, because a lot of times, I don't know all this, but I do hear a lot of conversation around that, and a lot of women that have children, a lot of times they don't include men or the fathers in the feeding time.
And that's when you're referring exclusively to women who are nursing.
Whether
or
they're
just all
nursing
together.
or just in
Okay.
general, a lot of times, like when you hear from men when their children are born, in most cases, a lot of women take on the responsibility of that nurturing, and I understand why.
Okay.
But they're not. But particularly the majority of women, from what I can see and just what I visualize, are not intentional about saying, I want you to also take part in this bonding time of feeding.
I see.
And my wife was very, very big on that. And so one of our like last conversations was she was like, "Oh my God, he's you guys are right there like feeding him and things like that." So those are the kind of memories I can hold on to and things like that. But yeah, that was a blow that I still ain't got. I don't have any answers to, and it's still very difficult as I go through these different milestones with my son right now, and I'm like, I'm here. In a lot of ways, there are still things, even with my therapist, and we've had these conversations. I'm like, okay, God, like for real, like I'm not mad at him. I think part of it is I just don't understand why did he have to not have his mom. I couldn't have thought of anybody more deserving of being a mother. Like she was like one of the things that she wanted to be, and she's already been. She was a mom. She got him here, and I hold on to that. But I'm like, dang, why could she still be around?
What year did Renee transition from this world?
And September 6th of 2020.
What drew you to TikTok?
Oddly enough, we used to laugh about TikTok. We was like, oh, we don't need to get on there. It's just a bunch of people doing dances and stuff, and that was what it was initially about. But loneliness, loneliness drew me to TikTok. Loneliness drew me to TikTok, and it created a community for me because we're in a pandemic. We're all in the house. Very little contact with the outside world. And although, contrary to belief, I am very much an introvert in a lot of aspects, or just in general. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. See, I know. Here's the thing.
So you're talking about in person? You're an introvert? Like if I came through your neighborhood and you'd be like, oh no, we ain't doing this in person, or what is it? What does introvert look like for you? Because I am so confused.
Everybody's confused when I say that. So naturally my personality and just in general, like I'm cool with being the guy over that sits over in the corner. I don't have to be the center of attention. I'm not really a fan of it. However, God has always put me in front of people. Like my gifting in music and things like that has required me to be in front of people. Let me explain something to you. For those that don't understand, a lot of creative people that are great on stage or do things, we don't necessarily like it.
That's fair. When that moment is over. And so to that point,
bye-bye.
And to that point, I think the word introvert and extrovert is really misunderstood.
Sure.
An introvert, from my studies, you gain your energy internally. You don't need exterior forces to stimulate you. You can show up in outside spaces, but your strength is inward. And I can relate to that. I can hang out with people and do stuff, but at the same time, I can stay in the house like 3 days, ain't took a shower, ain't did nothing, I ain't got to talk to nobody, and I'm fine with me in a book. I don't need other people's stimulant to recharge me. I actually need time alone. So I can show up in spaces. Right. So when I hear introvert in that regards, that resonates with me because I prefer to recharge independent of other people. So that's what I hear when I say that. But for people that think introvert mean you probably don't want to be by yourself, you can go ahead and check out Isaac Live, and then y'all message me and tell me what your assessment is. What he's saying.
I like people and I enjoy people, but I have a people quota. Because again, because of my space in the music world and my career, it requires me to be in front of people. So I can't necessarily just disappear. Now, if you want to be theoretical, I did disappear. I hadn't been on a stage until last year, really. After my wife passed, I stopped posting on Instagram, all that stuff. Like I obviously I had a son and life was very different. Did I miss doing music? Because music is not for me. My gift in music has nothing to do with me. I just happen to be the vessel that's bringing it to the earth. But what I do musically is about giving to people, listening to good music and things like that to help them have peaceful things or set the mood for your evening or whatever, riding down the road or whatever. Music for me is a gift to be given. So for me, I do that because that's part of who I am. It is a purpose for me. Outside of that, I'm Gucci over here.
Then what nurtures your soul? What feeds your soul? What strengthens you?
I do. My alone time is cool, but I'd rather be alone with someone. That's a real thing. Like, which is where the single life is very difficult, because I'm cool with I'm all right with being. I don't have to be out doing a bunch of stuff. Like, some people be like, oh, they gotta do this and they gotta have like date every weekend. They gotta go do something. No, I don't have to do that. Give me somebody I can hang with. That was the thing about being Renee. We were best friends, for real best friends. Like, hang out. I could be around that girl 24 hours a day, and we never had an argument. I would say did we have disagreements? Every relationship has disagreements. Never screamed at each other, never cussed at each other, none of that. There was never a time that we had a disagreement, even if it was publicly, that she ever disrespected me publicly or anything like that, or vice versa. She never raised her voice at me. She always honored me in a way that I've never even experienced in a like, it's very, very high regard. And I respect that. That was one of the greatest relationships I've ever been in. And it was literally the greatest. And I find strength in love golf. So one of my most peaceful places is if you find me on the golf course. If people know me, I love golf. Love it a lot. At one point, when I was, I would say that I was kind of semi-retired for a little bit, but I did have this one point where I didn't really work a full-time job, and I was just doing music, and I was out performing and things like that. And I could hit the golf course like 2 or 3 times a week. And that was great, because I was like, oh, this is what the CEOs feel like, This is what I hear. I was like, oh, okay, like, this is how they roll. I'm out on the golf course 2 or 3 times a week. And yeah, so golf is one of my favorite things to do. Nature, the concentration requires, and if people that know anything about me, when I get involved with something, I'm really involved. Like, I'm not like, oh, let me, it's kind of half in it, or oh, it's just the little fellowship with the guys. Here's let's drink a couple of drinks, let's take up shots, and no. Like, I'd brother compete. Like, I go and be in tournaments. Like, I was on a couple of amateur tour thing locally. That kind, like, I'm in leagues and stuff. Like, I don't just do stuff. Like, ages ago, I was trying to go pro bowl, because I was bowling so much and get like winning like different stuff. Like, I was that into it. Like, I still have like 5 or 6 bowling balls, like drilled different. Like, when I say I'm a nutbag about this stuff, like, I have my golf clubs are custom to my style of play. Like, I don't like, yeah.
So when you in it to win it when you do stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So musically is the same way.
Okay.
I have everything that I could ever want to work with, that I could explore.
So let me ask you this: publicly on stage performing music, very vocal on your TikTok, hosting different live. What is something that people don't know about Isaac?
What is something that people don't know about me? I think I want to say recently I did something on my TikTok that they were like, people commented. So I'm a math nerd. A lot of people don't understand that. And I will say a lot of people don't know that I have quirky, like, encyclopedia kind of level knowledge of certain stuff that just doesn't make any sense why I know that. But it'll come up in a conversation. Like, we could be out in a social situation and having drinks or something, and we'll be discussing something. I'll be like, oh yeah, well, this blah 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 blah. They're like, and people look at, why do you know that? So I was the kid that watched Jeopardy. Okay, I was on the academic team in high school, similar to Jeopardy, or Yeah, so a lot of people wouldn't know that I love chess. I love chess. But yeah, so that the numbers thing is a big deal for me. Chess, a lot of people wouldn't have a clue.
Okay. Are you dating now?
I am out in the dating world. I have been actively in the dating world, and that's been interesting.
I was gonna say, what does that look like now after what does dating look like for you now in comparison to what it looked like for young guys?
Oh, well, let's say young Isaac was very different. Dating now is very interesting. A lot of people have a lot of entitlement attitudes. Um, a lot of people really don't know what they want. A lot of people talk a good game, but they really don't know, and they definitely don't know how to execute it. And that can sound somewhat judgmental from my perspective, but having walked through a space of I know what I want to do in life, and I know I don't need that I can't do it alone. I move in a certain space of how to do that. And seeing people like, oh, well, if you ain't making this amount of money, then you can't even talk to me. Or if you don't look this certain way, then you can't talk to me. Or you if you're not trying to take me on these level of trips, then you can't. I'd be like, all of you sound a little crazy.
The Cheesecake Factory is good enough for you.
Listen, yes, the Cheesecake Factory. Listen, they first of all, they cheesecake good. Let's just start there. Okay, nobody say they meatloaf is a blessing. Okay, they meatloaf. Listen, I've been going to the Cheesecake Factory since high school. Okay, Cheesecake Factory. Matter of fact, the night of prom, we all went to Cheesecake Factory because that was big dollar back then. So I don't that. So when I look at the dating world and having walked in it or walking in it, it's very, very different. Now, it's obviously very, very different because I have a toddler. And that goes to the thing about would I get married again? Or would like because I've always dated with purpose of marriage. I've never really dated just to be dating. I don't even know. First of all, I don't even know how that works. Let's just talk about that. Like
you're asking me questions now.
I wasn't asking you no question. I just wanted to put that out there. Like I don't even know how that works for people. Like people to be like, oh, I just date just to be dating. Like and there are people that I follow on TikTok and I follow them for many different reasons, but I'm curious to how do people go? How do they go out with so many different people and expect to become or get into something long term where they're entertaining so many different people? Now, as intelligent as I am and still seeking knowledge, ain't no way. I tell people I could never be a player. First of all, I wasn't raised that way, but I ain't got it in me. Because what I'm not gonna do is go out with Tina and then be over here with whoever. Tina like sunflowers, she like roses. Now I done brought you a set of orchids and you upset. I ain't got time for that.
You're not texting 25 women, hey baby, good morning, sweetie,
Listen,
good morning, sweetie, good morning, good morning. No, good morning, queen. Good
ain't
morning,
no
queen. Good morning,
grand
queen.
rising and none of that. I ain't doing all that. I ain't got time. I'm like seriously, it's too many. Like I can't do it. Like I don't know how people do it. I'll be like, y'all be asking for yourself to fall. Like I'll be, you know, there are certain things, you know, but for me, like I am comfortable with getting settled with one person.
That needs to be thick, classy, and
right.
attentive. Those are my notes. Make sure I threw those in there. Okay.
Right.
So you would get married again?
So yes. So okay. Marriage is on the table. So this is what came for me. And this is a very real part of the conversation again. I had to come to a space because I was like, everybody's journey as a widower or widow is very different once they become single. Now, we all know, I tell anybody, listen, let's just be real. Just because I don't have a wife no more don't mean I don't like to do certain things. Adulting. it doesn't mean that that kind of stuff, like, you don't get any urges anymore to be in the comfort or the arms of a woman. Like, I'm like, y'all, like, you gotta be. It actually gets way worse, if you ask me. Once you lose someone, it's like
you're cut off just like that.
Right. And I'm telling you, like, it's like, go from a healthy relationship in your marriage, a healthy sexual relationship, and then all of a sudden it's gone. Done. Finito. Now I got what am I supposed to do? Huh? Somebody's what? I ain't got nobody to hug me.
But sex is not the only reason to get married for you.
No.
Okay.
No, but I'm just saying those are real parts.
We can use that word in this podcast. You can use the word sex.
Yeah, so it's like it's the real parts of, but the intimacy thing is the real, and like, for me, one of the more fulfilling things is like cuddling and stuff like that. Like, well, dang,
but you talk that human touch, that intimacy, when you are used to being touched, just caress. And so we're not on TikTok Live. You're not going to get banana for saying anything.
Right. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the human touch thing, and people talk about, love languages and touching, being a love language. And I'm like, yeah, that went out the door about a year after my wife passed, because we loved on each other so much, and I was still good, but about a year I started like, oh my God, I need somebody give me a hug, and I used to, like, one of the things of like cuddling, like I said, like being on the couch and just like, my favorite place was laying on Renee's left thigh, and I would fall asleep there most of the time. Matter of fact, she got mad with me one time because the movie The Accountant, if you've never seen it, go see it. It's I'm sure you can find it on any Netflix or wherever it is.
It's good.
Anyway, long story short, one of the stories that she used to tell people was, she's like, this Joker, this is when we were still in that before friends and kind of crossing over in a relationship kind of thing. Well, I fell asleep on her thigh, and I guess I had seen it already, but somehow in the middle of me sleep, I got up and told her what happened at the end or whatever, and then went back to sleep.
You the spoiler?
I did.
You're that kind of person? Oh, I'm putting this on your notes.
Well, it wasn't that I was that kind of person. It just happened. I don't know that I was.
Oh, now you walking, you're talking, you're sleeping, you're not responsible for your own actions. Is that what you're going with?
I don't even know how. Yeah, so that was a good story that was told about me all the time. Okay. But yeah, so when it comes to the dating world, when I first got out to the dating world again, I went through those god awful dating apps, and
I met my husband on a dating app.
Listen, I'm not completely.
It's hard. There was a lot of frogs,
I'm not completely ruling them out. I'm not completely ruling them out.
Okay, so I'll give you some dating. After later, we can talk. I can.
But so I will say, I used the round number of 100. I'm gonna give you that for a reason. So I probably have, I would say, either swiped, interacted of some sort, and I will use the number of at least 100 women over time. Out of all of them, only one remains as far as contact is concerned,
That's fair.
dating.
Because you talked about people's interaction during dating, and a lot of that, what you see, social media, and how people are showing up and what they think relationships look like. But how do you drop the "I'm a widower twice and been married" in the dating conference? What does that look like? Ooh. Like, how does that? At what point does that show up? And is that like, oh no, not how? What does that look like? How does that land? And when do you present that?
Okay, let me listen to you. Y'all about to get a story. Y'all about to get a couple stories. So how that looks is people say things like, "Did you kill them?"
They're
People
texting or
say
in person. They say that.
texting.
Yeah, because people show up differently texting. They would in your face. Okay, I
Oh,
like.
I know. Matter of fact, that person in particular said that they try to say, "Well, I have dark humor," and then when they I politely said to them, I said that is one of the most insensitive things you could possibly ever say to a person, and I said, do me a favor, never say that to anyone else in your life.
Teachable moment.
I use it as a teachable moment. And this comes back to the control your passion that my father used to say, because as much as I wanted to rip her apart, what was I going to do? It wasn't going to change nothing. All she would have been like, see, dudes out here can't control their emotions. You're not going to get the satisfaction. What that did was she exited herself out. She said, you know what? I am such an asshole. And she blocked herself. She walked away.
Good.
She said, I am so sorry. Like, she's like, I don't even want to try to even do anything with you because I can't even stand next to a person like you. And she left herself. Because I could have chosen to go. What the initial was, I'm about to give her a straight up Baltimore. I'm about to give her a straight up Charles City. I'm about to let her have it. But I didn't, so that's one way it shows up in the conversation. People ask you, have you ever been married before? And or they say, well, how did your last relationship end?
Naturally.
And I was like, well, my wife passed away. And they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that kind of thing. And depending on how long or where the conversation goes, we'll get into details of how many how many times I've been married before. So all of those things have come up in situations.
So you make a point. At what point or how long or when, and this is more advice, a widow or widower that's dating, is there a systematic way of when you say this or how you don't, or when you give into that? Because you are single, even though you're single by being a widow, and when you want to divulge that, or how's that been for you as far as when that comes up?
It's been very early on.
Okay.
Like I don't I've even do it in the app. Like I've even done it in a dating app. Like
so your dating profile says widower?
Actually, I do have. I think I did have when I had my profiles. I don't really have any like profiles like that anymore. Like, but when I did have have it in there. Sometimes I didn't. I think on one I might have not, or another one. Like I think I kind of was testing.
It draws different energy sometimes.
Right. I was testing like, what was given or not given, or did I get more success with this profile versus that one because I had that in there, because some people, for some odd reason, think you're going to compete with a dead person. You can't replace her. You can't be her. Like, I'd be like, I've had to have that conversation with. So I said, listen, you're not her. You could never be her. Stop talking about her as if you're going to be in her shadow. You're not. Now, do I have a child that resembles her in the best parts of us? Absolutely. Now, do you think you can get rid of her as far as memories are concerned? The answer is no. She will always be somewhere in the picture in a reverence space because that's his mother. If you can't handle that, then we're not a good fit. Okay,
so what type of woman is a good fit for Isaac?
Definitely a believer in Christ.
Okay.
You can't, I couldn't. That's where a lot of people fall short because I'm not bending on that.
Okay.
So
10 toes down.
10 toes down. That's what it is.
Okay.
And for me, marriage is the end goal.
Okay.
I don't just date just to be date. I didn't, I've never done that. And I had to, and I, at some point, when I first got out there, I was like, okay, we got to step our toe back out here because we need to at least interact with women because we like them. That's what we like. This is the conversation I have internally with myself. I'm giving y'all the inside of my brain.
And then I was like, who was he talking to? Thank you.
That's what this is the conversation. I was like, this is what we like. We still like the touch of a woman. We like all that. So when I stepped my toe back out and put my toe in the water, I said, okay. Because I was like, I don't marriage, I was very, very fence. It wasn't off the table completely, but I was like, do I want to experience this again? Because I've already experienced it twice now. Like, that's a very real thing. Like, it was the first time was already one thing, but two, and I don't even really want to make somebody else a widow. Like, that's like a whole thought too. Like, I don't even want to make somebody else have that kind of pain because we were doing life together, and then now I'm not here. Like that.
But isn't that what we're committing to when we make these vows? We don't see that, but that is what relationship goals look like. That's the successful relationship story.
It is, but let's just be real. We all romanticize the fact that we think we're going to be here forever, and you don't want to think about that side of it. Now, as a person that's been through it twice, but even before that twice, it becomes real where you're just like, hey, listen, when you talk to a person, you say, hey, listen. And when you get, especially if you're getting serious, you start to ask that question. Or you give them that conversation. I don't have an issue with, hey, listen, if I were to leave this earth early before you do, don't sit around and wait or leave your life. Now, if you choose to stay by yourself, that's your business. But don't think that that's honoring me in some kind of way. If you're still here and you still want to enjoy life, please do that. And if there's someone that wants to do it with you, go do that.
So you're talking about having real conversations when you're married. What does life look like and all those things? So speaking of questions, I've asked you quite a bit. Any questions of me? I'll flip it a little bit, give you an opportunity.
I vaguely remember, but I think you told me, or I remember seeing how I got connected with you, and seeing your story. I was like, aha, she got married again. And how did, because you were married for 20 plus years, weren't you?
Initially? We were, Mark and I were married for 29 years.
Now that is the question for me. How did that turn around for you? Because, I didn't even crack 5 years on either relationship. I'm like 29 and then decide to do it. Like my mom, I obviously, now that my mom I'm the first widower in the family, so when my father passed away, and me and my mom have these candid conversations here and there, and my mom was like, so I asked my mom, I said, Mom, what's your feeling? I said, you think you'll ever date again or whatever? And I just, this was like at least over a year after my dad passed. And my mom was like, yeah, I ain't never get married again. But I expect that. She was with my dad from the time that she was like 19.
And my husband and I are together since I was 18. We met in the military. But how old was your mom when your dad passed?
My mom, how old was she? She'll be 67. So she was 65.
I mean, I have seen widows in their 80s get remarried. Blows my mind. But
listen, that's what she said.
And so, so we're going to go back to the statement. Everybody say what they say when they say it, but you're allowed to change your mind later.
Yeah, so, she changed her mind, because, she was like, I said, do you think you'll date? She was like, I'll probably date again, but as far as marriage, no. And I doubt it, because my mom and my dad, she's pretty set for when it comes to lifestyle and stuff like that. And I don't know if but again, you and I know that might change, given different circumstances and you meet someone. So
my lifestyle is set up and fine. My husband, in the second year of our marriage, we had that real conversation. What does it look like when one of us are not here? And we set that other person up to be fine. They didn't have to need another person for their existence. So we made that plan. So that part, and I've seen widows get married very quickly because they didn't have the financial ability to maintain themselves. So coupling was essential. So I wasn't driven by that reason. And when I came to the place, I was hanging out with a friend, and they've been single. They're in their 40s, and I put a glass down, and they moved it right away because I didn't put it where it was supposed to be. And I was like, okay, Tina, how long before you live in this life where you forgot to make space for somebody else in your world? Because when you're interacting and doing everything yourself, you have your own way of doing stuff. And I said, okay, do you want to make space for somebody else in your life? And a lot of prayer, a lot of soul searching and going, I do have space for somebody else. And my husband and I had that conversation about when we were not here, that I want you to continue living. Continue living doesn't always mean recoupling, but if that's something you want to do, I want you to have joy. And so Mark and I spoke about that. So I didn't have to feel like, I knew we were okay with that. That conversation was had. He literally told me, I want you to get remarried. I want you. My children heard that conversation because we have adult children. So there's a lot going on. But I said, God, how are we going to get there though? Like, I've been with this man for 32 years, and just any old Rudy Poot ain't going to do it. Like, you need to come. I have expectations of how a relationship is going to go. I need monogamy. I need commitment. I need truth. I need communication. We do have to have the same faith. And after 32 years, I was like, the sister will go out single because I'm not trying to have raggedy on the end because I was thirsty. So we're going to need to not do that. And there was a lot of swiping left. A lot of this doesn't make any sense. The first date I went on with Fred, we met, we had been talking on Zooks, and I was like, I'm tired of people telling me they 6 feet and I'm looking at the top of their head and I'm 5'9". I need people to show up how they say they is. I'm 5'9".
That's why. Listen, that is why my statement is what it is.
I was like, I know what my late husband and I were the same height. I was like, I'm wearing heels now. You need to be 6 foot to get on this ride. That's just the way it works. Ain't nothing else. And so now on the opposite end, when my husband and I were intimate 2 to 3 times a week, he died, I dried up. There was no feeling. There wasn't any thirstiness going on. I thought I was ready to become a nun. I was like, well, I guess I ain't gonna be a hoe out in these streets. All right, thank you, Lord. I appreciate you from saving me.
He said, I have no hoe phase whatsoever.
No hoe phase. I talk to widows now. I'm like, yeah, it did not hit. But Fred and I, the first date, and he stood up and I gave him a hug, and girl was like, we back. I was like,
she said, I think I felt something.
I was like, okay.
There's the tingle. There's the tingle. Oh my God.
That very first date, we sat down and talked for hours. It was so organic and easy and natural. And it has been that way for 5 years.
That's awesome.
I could not make that happen.
I think that's the thing that makes it really cool, like wonderful, like I was like, man, she was married for, with this man for almost,
And I'm like my husband, right? I still love Mark today. Now I'm gonna tell you, Fred and I are getting ready to get married, and someone asked me about names, and I was like, I never thought about changing my last name. So we're out eating, and I go, so what do you think about my last name? And he was like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, we're about to get married. And he said, your children would not have a parent in this world with the same last name if you change your name. Why would you do that? And I said, if there was any doubt, this man knows about. He said, I don't care about that. You love me and we're going to be married. What that looks like and everything. He said, that's irrelevant. And then he go, but you're kind of old to be changing your name anyway. That'd be complicated. I was like, you didn't have to say that. You could have left it at my children and been all cute.
Nah, we gotta put that down there because Come on. I mean, it's got to be a joke in there
It
somewhere.
was, but the level I could not have imagined, because that's what I thought. I was like, God, I've been with Mark for 32 years. Like, touching another man's hand, somebody kissing me, making love to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, now, did I cry the first time we made love? I did, because I was like, Mark is really dead. Like, I am out here. I got up the other day to get a cup of coffee. I got up the other day earlier than Fred, and I was downstairs, and I was like, he has left this world and I have a whole nother life.
And,
Wow.
and I think that's what people don't realize is that those real internal conversations still happen. Like like you said, it's like now, getting into I got into the dating world, I interacted with all these women, but part of that is, how only one of them remains as far as being in my life still, because I have so many you're in a different like stage of life where I still got a young child, so that is full time with at home,
Mm.
and I got to be like, okay, if I'm going to bring a woman into our space, they have to have maternal, you know, be okay with being maternally involved and be a mommy to my son. Part of my decision making for wanting to get married again is because I understand the balance of what that did for me.
Going back to my original question, that structure in your household, in your family.
Yeah, my son needs a mom, regardless of the fact that his mom is no longer here. He still needs a mom. There's a balance that comes along with that, and every woman can't do that, and every
Mm-hmm.
woman isn't mature enough to handle that, and every woman isn't mature enough to handle my wife is going to come up. There are pictures that I sit down with my son from time to time, and and it's pictures of me and her together and things like that. That's how he got here. There are going to be conversations. There are going to be milestones. There are going to be things. You're not in her shadow, but if you're not mature enough to handle it, I can't deal with that. I don't have the capacity to deal with that, because understand, we will have a life. She's still a part of that life though, because that little boy that you have right here came from her. So you can't really get rid of her. And if you're a selfish person, we're not going to go anyway. We're
You
not
got
going
to
to do
be able
nothing
to
together.
honor her. So I know
So
when we first had our first conversation, you're like, "Oh, we'll talk for a little bit." It has been 2 hours. I knew you thought
listen,
when I first told you we would do this, and you was like, "Oh, 90 minutes," and I was like, "Oh no, it can go for."
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
there is so much we have not even spoke about.
You're right.
But to I want you to be able to wrap up this conversation, and I
Yeah,
want to hold space for us to have another discussion, because there are a lot of other things I'd like to talk about if you
absolutely.
would be willing.
I sure would. I've enjoyed this. I'm glad that I was able to come because,
Thank
you
you.
know, I don't often talk about my story. I've had several people in my life tell me, Isaac, you need to write a book. I'm like, listen, shut up. I don't want to write a book. Well, at least not on, I don't feel like that's something that I want to do specifically, because I was like, it's so much you have to pull out
Yeah.
emotionally. And I don't know if I want to go back down that road.
And that's
So
fine.
if it happens, it happens. If it don't, we'll be all right.
So I'll let you wrap up this conversation. Maybe there was something you wanted to talk about we didn't particularly cover, but I'll let you close out this discussion.
I think my biggest thing that I would want to end the conversation with is grief is a part of life. It's going to happen. The older you get, your loved ones, whether that's a parent, siblings, family members, relatives, whatever you want to call them, friends, you're going to lose someone. Don't be stuck in the fact that you lost them. One of the things I learned a long time ago is celebrate the dash, which is the nice sign that goes in between the day they were born and the day that they left the earth. What's in between that is memories and experiences that you've had. You can celebrate those memories. You can rehearse those memories. And the fact that they are no longer here doesn't have to bind you into a prison. You can take the chance to decide, I'm still here, and choose to live still and create new experiences, but create those experiences without them. And decide that you're going to create a new life that looks different now with yourself and whomever else, maybe if you still have children or whatever, but you decide, to do that. My therapist, sometime last year, that's what cracked the code for me, where I was kind of stuck. I've always been a very person to move forward, but I was kind of stuck in a space where I was like, okay, well, we had made this. I remember us saying this, and I'm looking at vision in this book that I have that I write visions in and all of these, and I'm like, oh, so what? Am I supposed to still do this? And I was stuck in a space of what? And my therapist just said to me, she said, Isaac, she said to me, you now have to let that vision die and create a new vision for you and Isaac III without Renee. That turned my life into a whole another space. I haven't stopped writing music since, because I went a good portion of time without playing my trumpet or writing any music or doing anything. Since then, I've put out 2 singles. I got another one coming. I've gone back to performing on stage. Get therapy, have good community, have God, and you'll be all right. If you're missing some component in there, I'm just going to say from experience, without all 3 of those components, it may be a little tough. I highly encourage therapy. I definitely highly encourage God. Good community, and you have to discern that community, because everybody can't be with you during this process. It's unfortunate, but everybody can't roll with you. Sometimes people fall by the wayside. Some people will, but if you can just tell people, I don't know what I need, but if you could just show up and be present, that'll do enough for me. Because a lot of times I just come sit on the couch. Let's watch TV, watch a movie. Let's just go get something to eat. I don't necessarily need to talk about any specific thing, but if you just present, I'll be cool. And I think that's, if we all were real about that, that's what most of us just needed. It was just someone present. So that would be my thing that I would end this with, is good therapy, good community, and God will get you through it all. That's how I still smile. That's how I still smile.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.